Rain hammered the cemetery in relentless sheets as a young woman collapsed beside a marble gravestone. Her trembling hands clawed at the muddy earth, her sobs cutting through the storm with a rawness that no amount of money could silence. She wept like someone who had lost not just an employer, but the only person who had ever made her feel human. Around her, expensive flowers wilted in the downpour. The tombstone gleamed with fresh polish, but the grief pouring from her heart was real, raw, and utterly unpaid for. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that the man beneath that stone wasn't truly dead. And somewhere in the shadows, hidden by rain and darkness, someone was watching every tear that fell. Hello, friends. Welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe. Also, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? But before we dive deeper into this story, we need to understand how we got here. We need to meet Maya Chen and learn how a girl from nothing became invisible in a mansion of everything. Maya Chen had learned early in life that survival meant disappearing. In the Hartwell estate on the outskirts of Chicago, invisibility wasn't a metaphor, it was a requirement. You spoke only when addressed. You lowered your gaze when the family passed. You learned to move like a ghost through marble hallways, leaving no trace of your existence. Maya mastered this art perfectly. Every morning she woke before dawn while the city still slept. She scrubbed, polished, laundered, and cleaned, moving from room to room like a shadow serving a palace that would never acknowledge her presence. By the time the Hartwell family emerged from their bedrooms, everything was already immaculate, and Maya was already exhausted. No one asked how she felt. No one ever did. Victoria Hartwell, the matriarch of the house and sister-in-law to the estate's owner, had a voice that could cut through steel. "Maya, did I ask for streaks on that window? Maya, move faster, you're not here for charity. Maya, don't just stand there like a statue." Maya always responded the same way. "Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll fix it, ma'am." She never argued, never explained, never defended herself, because explanation only made things worse. Richard Hartwell, the owner's cousin, was different from Victoria in tone, but not in cruelty. He smiled more, he joked more, but his jokes landed like stones. "So, this is the quiet one. Does she even talk, or is she malfunctioning?" The others laughed. Maya kept her head down and continued pouring wine. Not one person in that house laughed, just the others. James Hartwell watched everything. He was a man who never raised his voice, never insulted, never needed to. His authority was quiet, heavy, unquestioned. To the world, James Hartwell was a billionaire. Real estate, logistics, investments, power. His name appeared in Forbes beside words like visionary and empire. His face graced magazine covers next to politicians and tech moguls. But inside his own home, James was mostly silent and observant. He noticed how Maya flinched before Victoria spoke. He noticed how she waited until everyone had eaten before touching food herself. He noticed how she thanked the security guards by name, even when they barely acknowledged her. One afternoon, something small happened, small enough that no one else would remember it. Victoria accused Maya of breaking a crystal vase, an antique from France, expensive enough to justify fury. The vase had shattered when Richard brushed past the table too quickly, but blame didn't follow truth in that house. "You careless girl," Victoria snapped. "Do you have any idea what that cost?" Maya dropped to her knees, hands shaking. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I didn't—" "Don't lie to me," Victoria hissed. "You think poverty gives you the right to destroy what you can't afford?" James had been descending the staircase when he heard the commotion. He stopped mid-step. She didn't break it, James said calmly. Victoria turned, startled. James, I saw what happened, James continued, his voice even but final. Richard brushed the table. Richard opened his mouth, then closed it. Victoria forced a tight smile. Well, accidents happen. Yes, they do. His eyes flicked briefly to Maya. Stand up, he told her. Maya obeyed, confused, her legs trembling. Go finish your work, he added. She bowed her head and left, her legs trembling beneath her. That was all he said. No lecture, no punishment, no drama. But for Maya, it was everything. That night, she cried quietly into her pillow, not from pain, but from shock. No one had ever defended her before. Not once, not ever. She didn't allow herself to wonder why. She only felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest, something fragile and dangerous. Hope. From that day forward, Maya watched James Hartwell the way one watches a distant star, aware of its light, but never believing it could be reached. She learned his habits, how he drank his coffee black, how he paused before important meetings as if bracing himself for battles no one else could see, how he sometimes stood by the window late at night, staring at the Chicago skyline instead of the people around him. And James continued watching Maya. He noticed how she worked even harder after that day, not out of obligation, but gratitude. He noticed she never mentioned the incident to anyone, how she carried her dignity quietly, without demanding recognition. One evening, as Maya cleared plates after dinner, James spoke again. What's your name? He asked. Maya froze. She had worked in that house for nearly 2 years. No one had ever asked her that. Maya, sir. Maya Chen. He nodded. Where are you from? California originally, sir. I came here when my sister got sick. I needed work. James studied her for a moment, not unkindly. Thank you for your work, he said simply. Then he walked away. It was nothing, and it was everything. Because in a house where Maya had been treated like furniture, someone had finally spoken to her like a human being. She didn't know it then, but those small moments, those quiet observations, were being stored carefully in James Hartwell's mind, not as sentiment, but truth. Truth about loyalty, truth about character, truth about who people really were when power believed itself unseen. And far beyond Maya's imagination, a reckoning was already shaping up. But what Maya didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that within weeks she would be standing at this man's grave, rain-soaked and heartbroken, carrying a secret that would change everything. And the man she mourned would be watching from the shadows, alive and aware, witnessing a confession that would shatter everything he thought he knew about trust, love, and betrayal. The weeks following James's first conversation with Maya brought subtle shifts in the Hartwell estate. Nothing dramatic. James Hartwell wasn't a man for grand gestures, but Maya noticed. He began acknowledging her presence with a brief nod when he passed her in hallways. He sometimes asked how her day was going, not as interrogation, but as genuine inquiry. Once, when she was carrying an impossibly heavy box of linens up the stairs, he quietly picked it up and carried it himself, ignoring her protests. "Let me," was all he said. Victoria watched these interactions with narrowed eyes. Richard smirked and made jokes about the boss going soft, but James never explained himself. He didn't need to. For Maya, each small kindness felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. She had spent so long being invisible that being seen, truly seen, felt almost dangerous. It awakened something in her she had carefully buried, the belief that she mattered. Late one Thursday evening, Maya was cleaning James's study. He often worked late, and she had learned to move around him silently, respecting his space. But tonight, he looked up from his desk. "Maya," he said, "sit down for a moment." Her heart jumped. "Sir, I should finish." "Please," he interrupted gently. She sat on the edge of a chair, hands folded tightly in her lap, waiting for reprimand or instruction. Instead, James asked, "How is your sister?" Maya blinked, stunned that he remembered. "She's better, sir. The treatment is working, slowly." He nodded. "Good. That's good." Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but weighted with things unspoken. "You deserve better than how you're treated here," James said finally. Maya's breath caught. "Sir, I'm not going to change their behavior overnight, but I want you to know I see it, and I don't agree with it." Tears pricked her eyes. She fought them back. "Thank you, sir. Call me James, at least when we're alone." She nodded, not trusting her voice. That conversation marked a turning point, not into romance, nothing inappropriate, nothing that crossed lines, but into something Maya had never experienced before: mutual respect. James began asking her opinions on small things: which caterer made better food, whether the new landscaping looked better than the old. He listened when she spoke, actually listened, as if her thoughts had value. And Maya began to see him not as a distant billionaire, but as a man, lonely despite his wealth, burdened by family he couldn't trust, searching for something genuine in a world built on transactions. She found herself thinking about him at odd moments, wondering if he'd eaten lunch during his long meetings, hoping his day had gone well, catching herself smiling when she heard his voice in another room. It terrified her. Because women like Maya Chen didn't fall for men like James Hartwell. That wasn't how the world worked. She knew the rules. She knew her place. But the heart doesn't follow rules. 3 months after the vase incident, everything changed again. Maya woke one morning feeling strange, dizzy, exhausted in a way that sleep didn't fix. She pushed through her work, attributing it to stress or perhaps a stomach bug. But when the symptoms persisted for a week, cold dread settled in her chest. No, it couldn't be. She bought a pregnancy test from a pharmacy 3 neighborhoods away where no one would recognize her. She took it in the bathroom of a fast food restaurant, hands shaking so badly she could barely hold it steady. Positive. Maya stared at the 2 lines, her world tilting sideways. She wasn't naive. She knew exactly when it had happened: a brief, reckless night several months ago with someone who'd promised her kindness and delivered only lies before disappearing. She had tried to forget it, to pretend it hadn't shattered what little remained of her trust in people. And now, this. She was pregnant, alone, working a job that barely paid enough to support herself, let alone a child, living in servants' quarters in a house where she was already considered disposable. Maya sat on that bathroom floor and made herself a promise. She would figure this out. She would survive this. She always had. What Maya didn't know, what she could possibly not know, was that James Hartwell wasn't dead at all, and somewhere in a secret facility across the city, he was very much alive, watching, waiting, and about to learn a truth that would change everything. That in 3 months, the woman crying for him would be showing signs of pregnancy, and that revelation would ignite a chain of events no one could predict. The funeral preparations transformed the Hartwell estate overnight. Flowers arrived in overwhelming quantities: roses, lilies, orchids, each arrangement more expensive than the last. White tents sprouted across the lawn like strange monuments to wealth. Caterers moved silently through the kitchen, preparing food for people who wouldn't taste it. Everything was efficient, expensive, and utterly hollow. Maya was assigned to assist during the ceremony. She wore black like everyone else, but her grief felt different, heavier, more real, completely unrecognized. As the funeral began, important guests filled the estate grounds: politicians whose campaigns James had funded, business partners who'd feared and respected him in equal measure, society women who'd wanted to be Mrs. Hartwell but never got the chance. Pastor Michael Reynolds spoke eloquently about legacy, success, and impact. James Hartwell was a man of vision, he intoned solemnly, a pillar of this city. Maya stood near the back, hands clasped tightly over her stomach, a protective gesture she'd developed without realizing. She was 8 weeks pregnant now, though no one knew. The morning sickness had gotten worse, but she'd learned to hide it, swallowing nausea and forcing herself to keep moving. They spoke of James's wealth, his achievements, his empire. No one spoke of his kindness. When the closed casket was lowered into the ground, Victoria wailed dramatically, supported by 2 women Maya didn't recognize. Richard bowed his head theatrically, his hand over his heart. Maya didn't cry. Not then. She couldn't. Because crying meant accepting it was real, and she wasn't ready for that yet. It was only later, when the guests had left and darkness fell, that the weight finally crushed her. Maya waited until nightfall, until the house was quiet, until she was certain no one would see. Then she slipped out through the servants' entrance, walking the mile to the cemetery on foot. The night air was cool against her flushed face. Her body felt strange, foreign. Pregnancy hormones made everything sharper, rawer. Her emotions sat too close to the surface. The cemetery gates were unlocked. The security guards' post sat empty. Someone must have abandoned their shift. Maya found the grave easily. Fresh soil, still dark and loose, flowers already wilting in the evening air. A temporary marker with his name etched in brass, James Michael Hartwell, beloved son, visionary leader, 1979-2025. She dropped to her knees, mud immediately soaking through her black dress. For a long moment, she just stared at the ground, trying to make it real, trying to accept that the man who'd changed her life was buried beneath 6 feet of earth. Then the dam broke. "I don't know why this hurts so much," Maya whispered, her voice cracking. "You barely knew me." Tears streamed down her face, hot and relentless. "But you saw me when no one else did." Her hands pressed into the soil, fingers digging into the earth as if she could reach him. "You made me feel like I mattered, like I was more than just someone to be ordered around." A sob tore from her throat. "And now you're gone, and I'm so alone." The confession hung in the night air. "I'm pregnant," Maya whispered to the grave, saying it out loud the first time. "And I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. I don't know how I'm going to survive this." She wiped her face with shaking hands. "You're the only person who ever made me feel safe, the only one who ever defended me. And I know I was just your maid. I know I had no right to feel anything more than gratitude, but She couldn't finish the sentence, because admitting she'd loved him, even silently, even hopelessly, felt like betraying something sacred. "I wish you were here," Maya whispered finally. "I wish you could tell me it's going to be okay. Even if it was a lie, I'd believe it if it came from you." She lowered her forehead to the cold earth, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Rest now," she whispered. "And if there's heaven, I hope you're there. I hope you're finally free from all of them." What Maya didn't see, what she couldn't see through her tears, was the figure standing in the shadows near the cemetery's edge. James Hartwell watched from behind a stone monument, his jaw clenched, his hands gripping the cold marble to keep himself from moving. He was alive, healing, but alive. The accident had been staged, an elaborate plan to expose the vultures circling his empire. Dr. Morrison had orchestrated everything perfectly: the explosion, the fake remains, the death certificate, the burial of an empty casket. James expected many things. He expected crocodile tears from Victoria, expected Richard to start calculating inheritance before the body was cold, expected his so-called friends to immediately begin dividing his assets. What he didn't expect, what he wasn't prepared for, was this. Maya Chen, the quiet maid he'd tried to protect, kneeling in the mud at his fake grave, confessing grief so raw that it made his chest physically ache, and pregnant. The word echoed in his mind. Pregnant. Dr. Morrison stood beside James, speaking in a barely audible whisper. "Sir, we should go. It's not safe for you here." James couldn't move. His eyes remained fixed on Maya's trembling form. "She's the only one," James murmured, his voice tight. "The only one crying like she actually lost someone she cared about." "Sir, she's pregnant," James interrupted, the word rough in his throat. "Did you know?" "No, sir, that's new information." James's mind raced. Who was the father? When did it happen? Why hadn't she never mentioned it? But even as questions flooded his mind, one truth stood clear. Maya Chen had come to his fake grave alone, pregnant and terrified, and poured her heart out with no one watching. No performance, no angle, just pure, devastating honesty. "We need to protect her," James said quietly. Dr. Morrison hesitated. "Sir, the plan." "The plan doesn't matter if she's hurt in the process," James cut him off, his voice harder now. "Victoria and Richard will tear that house apart looking for assets. If they find out Maya's pregnant, they'll use it against her somehow. I know them." He watched as Maya finally stood, swaying slightly before catching her balance. She looked exhausted, drained, utterly defeated. "Follow her," James ordered. "Make sure she gets home safely, and tomorrow I want full security on her, discreet but constant." "And if they ask questions?" "They won't, because everyone thinks I'm dead, and dead men don't protect anyone." As Maya walked away from the cemetery, unaware she was being watched and guarded, James remained frozen in place. For the first time since staging his death, he felt the weight of what he'd done. Not the plan itself, that was necessary, but the collateral damage. Maya's pain was collateral damage he hadn't anticipated. "She said she felt safe with me," James whispered, more to himself than the doctor. "Yes, sir. And now she's pregnant, alone, and grieving for a man who isn't even dead." Dr. Morrison placed a careful hand on James's shoulder. "We can help her without revealing yourself. We can make sure she's taken care of." James nodded slowly, but his eyes never left the direction Maya had walked. "She deserves better than this," he said quietly. What he didn't know, what he couldn't know yet, was that Maya's pregnancy would become the catalyst for everything that followed, that Victoria and Richard's greed would fixate on it, that accusations would fly, and that the secret growing inside Maya Chen would become both her greatest vulnerability and her unexpected salvation. Because in 3 days, Victoria Hartwell would discover the pregnancy, and in discovering it, she would make the biggest mistake of her life, setting in motion a reckoning that would destroy everything she'd built on James's supposed death. Maya woke the next morning feeling worse than ever. The morning sickness that had been manageable for weeks had intensified overnight, probably from the emotional trauma of the cemetery. She barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting violently, her body shaking with the effort. She couldn't hide this much longer. Splashing cold water on her face, Maya stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her cheeks looked hollow. And if she looked closely, really closely, there was the faintest swell to her lower abdomen. 10 weeks now. Soon it would be undeniable. She needed a plan. She needed to leave the Hartwell estate before anyone noticed. But leaving meant losing her room, her income, her health insurance, everything. And with a baby coming, she couldn't afford to be reckless. 1 more month, she told herself. Save every penny for 1 more month, then figure out where to go. But fate had different plans. The shift in the Hartwell household began subtly on the 3rd day after the funeral. Victoria and Richard called a meeting of all household staff in the main sitting room, something that had never happened before. Maya stood in the back, arms crossed protectively over her stomach, a gesture she'd started doing unconsciously. Victoria stood at the front of the room, her posture rigid, her expression cold. "Things are going to change around here," she announced. "Until the estate is fully settled, we need to reduce expenses significantly." Maya's stomach sank. "That means," Victoria continued, "no unnecessary meals for staff, no overtime pay, no personal phone calls on house lines, and absolutely no shirking of duties." Her eyes swept across the room, landing briefly on Maya with an expression that made Maya's skin crawl. "We're also implementing new health screenings," Victoria added. "Standard procedure for insurance purposes. Dr. Morrison will be conducting brief examinations for all staff members this week." Panic seized Maya's chest. Health screenings. They would find out. They would discover the pregnancy. And then, Maya's mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. That evening, she approached the house manager, Mr. Chen, a distant relative who'd helped her get the job 2 years ago. "Uncle," she said quietly, using the respectful term though they weren't blood-related. "The health screening, is it mandatory?" Mr. Chen looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Hartwell insists. Why? Are you unwell?" "No, Maya swallowed hard. "I value my privacy." He studied her face for a long moment, and Maya saw the exact second he understood. His expression shifted from confusion to concern to something like resignation. "Maya," he said gently, "how far along?" Tears pricked her eyes. 10 weeks. Mr. Chen closed his eyes briefly. "Does anyone else know?" "No, and I need it to stay that way." "Mrs. Hartwell will find out during the screening." "I know," Maya interrupted. "That's why I'm asking, is there any way to avoid it?" Mr. Chen shook his head slowly. "She's already made the list. If you refuse, she'll know something's wrong and dig deeper." Maya felt the walls closing in. "I'll try to help however I can," Mr. Chen promised. "But Maya, you need to prepare yourself. This won't go well." The health screening happened 2 days later in a converted library room. Dr. Morrison conducted each examination privately, professional and efficient. When Maya's turn came, she walked into the room with her heart hammering so hard she felt dizzy. Dr. Morrison gestured to a chair. "Please, sit." Maya sat, hands clenched in her lap. The doctor performed basic checks, blood pressure, temperature, pulse, all while maintaining a neutral expression. Then he paused. "I need to ask some routine questions," he said quietly. "Are you currently taking any medications?" "No, sir." "Any existing health conditions?" "No, sir." His eyes met hers briefly, and Maya saw something there. Recognition? Concern? She couldn't tell. "Any reason to believe you might be pregnant?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. Maya's breath caught. She could lie, but what was the point? The examination would reveal everything anyway. "Yes," she whispered. Dr. Morrison nodded once, made a note on his clipboard, and then did something unexpected. He stood and walked to the door, checking that it was fully closed. When he returned, his voice was barely audible. "How far along?" 10 weeks. "And the father?" Maya shook her head. "Not in the picture, never will be." The doctor was silent for a long moment. Then he did something even more unexpected. He tore the top page off his clipboard and pocketed it. "As far as my official report is concerned," he said clearly, "you're in perfect health, no conditions to report." Maya stared at him, stunned. "But why would you—" "As far as I'm concerned," Mr. Morrison interrupted quietly, "you are not pregnant." "I don't understand." The doctor's expression softened slightly. "James Hartwell was a good man. He would have protected you if he were here. Consider this acting in his memory." Before Maya could respond, Mr. Morrison wrote something on a fresh page and handed it to her. "This is a clinic.
They provide prenatal care on a sliding scale. You should go." Maya took the paper with shaking hands. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how to thank you." "Stay strong," he said simply, "and be careful around Mrs. Hartwell. She's looking for weaknesses to exploit."
But Dr. Morrison's protection only lasted 3 days, because Victoria Hartwell wasn't a woman who accepted incomplete information. And when she noticed Maya's increasing exhaustion, her frequent bathroom trips, her hand constantly resting on her stomach, Victoria began to suspect. On the 4th day, Victoria did something calculated and cruel. She asked Maya to move a heavy box of James's belongings from his study to the storage room, a box deliberately packed to be nearly impossible for one person to carry. Maya tried. She gripped the box, lifted with her legs like she'd been taught, and made it 3 steps before the weight proved too much. She stumbled, and the box crashed to the floor, contents spilling everywhere. Victoria appeared almost instantly, as if she'd been waiting nearby. "Clumsy," Victoria said coldly, "or perhaps weak." Maya bent to gather the items, fighting tears of frustration. "Stand up," Victoria commanded. Maya obeyed. Victoria circled her slowly, like a predator assessing prey. "You've lost weight in your face, but gained it in your middle." Maya's breath caught. "Morning sickness?" Victoria asked, her tone sharp as a blade. "Fatigue? Emotional volatility?" "Mrs. Hartwell, you're pregnant." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Maya's silence was confirmation enough. Victoria's face twisted into something ugly, triumph mixed with disgust. "How far along?" "That's personal." "Nothing is personal when you live under my roof," Victoria snapped. "How far along?" 10 weeks, Maya whispered. Victoria's eyes gleamed with sudden calculation. 10 weeks. James died 3 weeks ago. She stepped closer. "Which means you were already pregnant when he was alive." Maya didn't understand where this was going, but dread pooled in her stomach. "Did he know?" Victoria pressed. "No, ma'am. I never told him." "Why not?" "Because it wasn't his concern. It's not anyone's concern." Victoria smiled, a terrible, knowing smile. "Oh, but it is my concern, especially if there's any chance, any possibility at all, that James is the father." The accusation hit Maya like a physical blow. "No," Maya said firmly. "Absolutely not. Mr. Hartwell never touched me inappropriately. He was a gentleman." "So you say, but who would believe the word of a pregnant maid over the spotless reputation of a dead billionaire?" Maya felt the trap closing around her. "Here's what's going to happen," Victoria said coldly. "You will take a paternity test. If the child isn't James, you'll be dismissed immediately for moral misconduct. If by some chance it is his, well, then we have a very different conversation. I'm telling you it's not his. Then you have nothing to worry about. The test will prove your innocence, unless, of course, you're lying." Maya realized with sickening clarity that this was a trap with no good outcome. Refuse the test, and Victoria would spread rumors that she was hiding something. Take the test, and Victoria would use the results, whatever they showed, to her advantage somehow. "I'll take the test," Maya said quietly, because there was no choice. "Because I'm telling the truth. Mr. Hartwell was never inappropriate with me. This child has nothing to do with him." "We'll see," Victoria replied. "Dr. Morrison will administer it tomorrow. Until then, you're confined to the servants' quarters. No contact with other staff, no phone calls." As Maya was escorted to her room by security she'd once considered friendly, her mind raced. This wasn't about truth. This was about control, about Victoria finding leverage wherever she could. What she didn't know was that miles away, in a secure facility, James Hartwell was watching security footage of this entire conversation, and his carefully controlled composure was fracturing into pure fury.
They're using her pregnancy as a weapon. They're going to destroy her reputation to what? Control some imaginary inheritance? Dr. Morrison stood beside him, equally troubled. The paternity test will clear her, sir. It will prove the child isn't yours. That won't matter to Victoria, James replied, his jaw clenched. She'll twist it somehow, find a way to make Maya look guilty regardless of the results. What do you want to do? James stared at the frozen image on the screen. Maya's face, exhausted and terrified, her hand protectively over her stomach. Accelerate the timeline, James said. We're not waiting another month. Victoria and Richard are about to learn that dead men can fight back.
Maya spent that night locked in her small room in the servants' quarters, staring at the ceiling and trying to understand how her life had spiraled so completely out of control. Pregnant, accused, trapped. She pressed both hands to her stomach, feeling the barely there swell. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the life growing inside her. "I'm so sorry you're coming into this mess." The baby's father, a man named David who'd worked briefly at the estate 6 months ago, had vanished the moment she'd tried to tell him she might be pregnant, changed his number, quit his job, disappeared like smoke. She'd been stupid to trust him, stupider to believe his promises. But she was so lonely, so desperate to feel like someone cared about her. And now she was paying the price. A soft knock came at her door near midnight. Maya froze, then slowly approached. "Who is it?" "Mr. Chen," came the whispered response. Maya unlocked the door. Her uncle figure slipped inside, his face creased with worry. "I shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "Security's been told to keep everyone away from you." "Then why risk it?" He handed her a small burner phone. "Hide this. If things get worse, you'll need a way to call for help." Maya took it with trembling hands. "Uncle, what's happening? Why is Mrs. Hartwell doing this?" Mr. Chen sighed heavily. "James's will is being read next week. There are complications, rumors of hidden clauses, unexpected beneficiaries. Victoria and Richard are scared they won't get what they expected." "But what does that have to do with me?" "If there's even a chance you're carrying James's child, a blood heir, that changes everything about the inheritance. They're terrified of that possibility." "But I'm not. The baby isn't his. The test will prove it." "Maya," Mr. Chen said gently, "Victoria doesn't care about truth. She cares about control. Even after the test clears you, she'll find another way to use this against you." "So what do I do?" He pressed an envelope into her hands. "Money. Not much, but enough for a few weeks. The moment they release you, run. Don't pack, don't explain, just disappear." Tears burned Maya's eyes. "I can't keep running." "Then fight," he replied, "but not here, not in their territory." After he left, Maya hid the phone and money under a loose floorboard. Then she sat on her bed, one hand on her stomach, and made herself a promise. Whatever happened tomorrow, she would survive it. For herself, for her baby, for the memory of a man who'd shown her kindness existed, even if only briefly. The next morning, Dr. Morrison arrived with testing equipment, his expression professionally neutral. Victoria insisted on being present in the room, claiming she needed to ensure proper protocol. Richard lounged in a chair by the window, smirking like this was entertainment. "This is unnecessary," Maya said quietly, as Dr. Morrison prepared the cheek swab. "I'm telling you the truth." "Then you have nothing to hide," Victoria replied coldly. The test itself was quick. A simple cheek swab from Maya compared against James's DNA from samples kept on file for medical purposes. Dr. Morrison worked efficiently, labeling everything with precise care.
Results will be available in 24 to 48 hours, he announced. Make it 24, Victoria ordered. After the doctor left, Victoria turned to Maya with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You'll remain confined until we have results. Can't have you running away if it turns out you've been lying. I haven't been lying, Maya said firmly. We'll see.
24 hours later, Dr. Morrison returned. Maya was brought to James's former study, a room that still smelled faintly of his cologne, making her chest ache. Victoria and Richard sat behind the large mahogany desk like judges at a trial. Maya stood before them, hands clasped over her stomach protectively. Dr. Morrison opened his folder with deliberate slowness. "The results," Victoria prompted impatiently. "The test conclusively proves," Dr. Morrison said clearly, "that James Hartwell is not the biological father of Miss Chen's child. No genetic match whatsoever." Relief flooded through Maya so intensely, her knees nearly buckled. "I told you." "However," Dr. Morrison continued, his eyes flicking briefly to Victoria. "Anomalies?" Victoria interrupted, leaning forward. "What kind of anomalies?" "Nothing that changes the conclusion," the doctor said firmly. "James Hartwell is definitively not the father." Maya watched Victoria's face cycle through emotions, disappointment, then calculation, then something darker. "Well," Victoria said finally, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "I suppose we owe you an apology, Maya." Maya said nothing, not trusting the sudden shift in tone. "However," Victoria continued, standing slowly, "the fact remains that you are pregnant, unmarried, and living under my roof. That presents complications." "What kind of complications?" Maya asked, though she already knew. "This is a respectable household. We can't have unwed mothers working here. It sets a bad example, creates gossip." "Mrs. Hartwell, you're dismissed," Victoria cut her off, "effective immediately." The words landed like a slap. "You can't do that," Maya said, her voice rising. "I've done nothing wrong. You forced me to take that test. I passed, and now you're firing me anyway?" "I can do whatever I want," Victoria replied coldly. "This is my house now." "It was never your house," Maya shot back, anger finally breaking through fear. "It was James's, and he would never have treated anyone this way." Victoria's face hardened. "James is dead, and I'm very much alive." She gestured to the security guards waiting at the door. "Escort Miss Chen to her quarters. She has 1 hour to pack her few belongings and leave the property." As guards moved toward her, Maya made one last desperate stand. "Mr. Chen told me about the will reading, about the complications you're worried about. Is that what this is really about? You're scared of something in James's will?" Victoria's expression flickered, just for a moment, but enough for Maya to see she'd struck a nerve. "Get her out of my sight," Victoria hissed. As Maya was led away, she heard Richard's voice. "You think she knows something?" And Victoria's response, "It doesn't matter. She's nobody. She can't hurt us." Maya was given exactly 1 hour to pack her few belongings and leave the property. Mr. Chen helped her carry her single suitcase to the servant's exit, his expression heavy with guilt and sorrow. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I tried to convince them." "It's not your fault, Uncle," Maya replied. "Thank you for everything." He pressed another envelope into her hands. "A few of the staff pooled money. It's not much, but—" Maya hugged him tightly, tears finally spilling over. "Tell them thank you. Tell them I'll never forget their kindness." As she walked through the gate for the last time, Maya turned back once. The Hartwell estate loomed behind her, massive, imposing, indifferent to her departure. She thought of James, of his quiet kindness, of how he'd defended her over a broken vase, of how he'd asked her name, thanked her for her work, and treated her like a human being. "I miss you," she whispered to his memory. "I wish you were here. I wish you could tell me everything's gonna be okay." She had no idea that in a secure facility across the city,
James Hartwell was watching her leave through security cameras, his hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight with fury. "Enough," James said, his voice dangerously quiet. "What are your orders, sir?" Dr. Morrison nodded. "What are your orders, sir?" James turned from the screen, his eyes hard as steel. "We move now, today. I want Victoria and Richard to know their time is up. The will rating is in 3 days. Change it to tomorrow, emergency session, mandatory attendance, and make sure Maya is there." "Sir, she's just been dismissed. She's homeless." "I know," James said, his voice softening just slightly, "which is why I want a car sent to pick her up, take her somewhere safe, somewhere comfortable, make sure she has everything she needs. And tell her what? She thinks you're dead." James was silent for a long moment. "Don't tell her anything yet. Just tell her someone is looking out for her, someone who knew James and wants to honor his memory by helping her." Dr. Morrison nodded slowly. "And at the will reading?" James's expression hardened again. "At the will reading, Victoria and Richard are going to learn that their greed has consequences, and Maya is going to learn that the man she mourned never stopped protecting her." But what James didn't know, what no one could have predicted, was that Maya's presence at the will reading would trigger a revelation that would shock everyone in that room, because hidden in James's will was a clause that would change everything. A clause about protection, about character, and a maid who showed more loyalty in death than his own family had shown in life. And when that clause was read aloud, the truth would finally, devastatingly, come to light.
Maya walked for hours through Chicago's streets, her small suitcase growing heavier with each block. She had money now, the combined envelopes from Mr. Chen and the staff, but it wouldn't last long, not with a baby coming, not in a city this expensive. She stopped at a bus station, staring at the departure board. She could go back to California, start over where no one knew her, but her sister was still recovering there, barely managing her own bills. Maya couldn't burden her with this. She sank onto a bench, exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. Her feet ached, her back hurt. The pregnancy fatigue made everything harder. "Miss Chen?" Maya looked up sharply. A woman in a professional pantsuit stood before her, holding a tablet. She was African American, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a calm demeanor. "I'm sorry, who are you?" Maya asked warily. "My name is Jennifer Washington. I'm a private attorney." She showed identification. "I've been asked to help you on behalf of a mutual friend." "I don't have any friends with private attorneys." Jennifer smiled gently. The friend in question knew James Hartwell. They want to honor his memory by helping someone he cared about. Maya's breath caught. "Someone who knew James sent you?" "Yes. And before you worry, this person knows about your pregnancy, knows you were just dismissed from the Hartwell estate, and wants to help. No strings attached, no expectations." Maya's instincts screamed caution, but she was exhausted, pregnant, and running out of options. "Help? How?" "Temporary housing while you figure out your next steps, a safe place, medical care for your pregnancy, time to breathe and plan without pressure." It sounded too good to be true. "Why would anyone do that for me?" Jennifer's expression softened. "Because James Hartwell believed you deserved better than how you were treated, and some of us agree." Tears pricked Maya's eyes at the mention of his name. "I don't understand." "You don't have to understand right now. You just have to decide if you trust me enough to come somewhere safe." Maya looked around the bus station, at the strangers, the cold fluorescent lights, the uncertain future stretching before her. Then she thought of the life growing inside her. Her baby deserved better than this. "Okay," Maya whispered. "I'll come." The safe house wasn't what Maya expected. It wasn't luxurious or ostentatious. It was a modest brownstone in a quiet neighborhood with a small garden and warm lighting in the windows. Jennifer led her inside. "This place is yours for as long as you need it, fully furnished, utilities paid, groceries stocked." Maya walked through slowly, almost afraid to touch anything. The living room had a comfortable couch, bookshelves, soft rugs. The kitchen was clean and modern. Upstairs, a bedroom with a real bed, not a narrow cot in servants' quarters, but an actual queen-sized bed with clean sheets and fluffy pillows. The bathroom has prenatal vitamins in the medicine cabinet. There's a clinic nearby that specializes in pregnancy care. They're expecting you tomorrow at 10. Maya turned to her, overwhelmed. I don't know how to thank. You don't need to thank anyone, Jennifer interrupted gently. Just take care of yourself and that baby. After Jennifer left, Maya stood in the center of the living room, slowly spinning to take it all in. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt like she could breathe. She walked to the window and looked out at the quiet street. Normal people living normal lives. No one ordering her around. No one treating her like she was invisible. We're going to be okay, she whispered, hand on her stomach. Somehow, we're going to be okay. That night, Maya slept deeply for the first time since learning about James's death. No nightmares, no jolting awake in panic, just deep, healing rest. She woke to sunlight streaming through curtains she'd forgotten to close. For a confused moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it came back, the safe house, Jennifer, the mysterious benefactor. Someone who knew James. Maya got up slowly, her hand automatically going to her stomach. Nearly 11 weeks now. The morning sickness had been lighter this morning, maybe because she'd actually slept. In the kitchen, she found not just groceries but a folder on the counter. Inside, information about the pregnancy clinic, a prepaid phone with Jennifer's number programmed, and a note in neat handwriting. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. Take care of yourself. Someone is watching over you. Maya read it 3 times, tears sliding down her cheeks. She went to the clinic that afternoon. The staff was professional and kind, treating her with respect rather than judgment. They confirmed she was healthy, the baby was developing normally, and providing resources for everything she'd need in the coming months. Walking back to the safe house, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. 3 days passed in relative peace. Maya rested, ate proper meals, attended her clinic appointments. Jennifer checked in daily, but never pressured her for information or decisions. On the 4th day, Jennifer arrived with unexpected news. There's a will reading tomorrow, James Hartwell's official will. The family has been instructed that you must attend. Me? Why would I need to be there? The will specifically requests your presence. Apparently, James included certain clauses that require you to witness things. I was just his maid. I don't understand why. Neither do I, but it's a legal requirement. The reading can't proceed without you. Maya's panic rose. I can't face Victoria and Richard, not after what they did. You won't be alone, Jennifer assured her. I'll be there, and the law firm handling the will is very protective of their clients' wishes. Victoria and Richard won't be able to touch you. Still, Maya's hands shook at the thought of seeing them again. There's something else, Jennifer continued carefully. You need to prepare yourself for the possibility that James left you something, a severance package perhaps, or a character reference for future employment. Maya shook her head. He wouldn't have done that. He barely knew me. James Hartwell was known for rewarding loyalty, and from what I understand, you were loyal to him even after his death. Maya thought of the cemetery, of kneeling at his grave, of confessing her grief to the soil. I cared about him, she said softly, not because of what he could give me, just because he was kind. I know, and that's exactly why you need to be at this reading. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, one hand on her stomach, the other clutching the note from the mysterious benefactor. Someone is watching over you. She thought of James, of his quiet observations, of how he'd defended her without hesitation, of how he'd asked her name, thanked her for her work, seen her when everyone else looked through her. I miss you, she whispered into the darkness. I wish I knew who's helping me. I wish I could thank them properly. In a secure facility across the city, James Hartwell sat in front of a bank of monitors, watching the safe house's external cameras. He couldn't see inside. He'd insisted on giving Maya complete privacy, but he could see that the lights were still on late at night. She can't sleep, Dr. Morrison observed. Neither can I, James replied. Tomorrow she'll see you. She'll learn the truth.
James' jaw tightened. She's going to be angry, hurt. I let her believe I was dead, let her suffer at Victoria's hands, let her walk away from that house thinking she was alone. You were protecting her from being destroyed by Victoria. After letting Victoria torment her first, James finished bitterly. Don't make me into a hero, Samuel. I don't deserve it. Silence settled between them. What will you say to her tomorrow? Dr. Morrison asked finally. James closed his eyes. The truth, that I failed her, that I'm sorry, and that I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. And if she can't forgive you, then I'll accept that, because forgiveness isn't something you can demand, it's something you earn. The next morning would bring revelation, confrontation, and a truth that would shake the foundations of the Hartwell empire. Victoria and Richard would learn that dead men can still destroy their carefully laid plans, and Maya Chen would discover that the man she'd mourned at a grave had been watching over her all along. But whether that knowledge would bring comfort or rage, no one could predict.
Maya dressed carefully for the will reading, choosing the one professional outfit she owned, a simple navy dress that was getting slightly tight around her middle. 11 weeks pregnant now, and while she wasn't obviously showing yet, she felt different, heavier, more vulnerable. Jennifer arrived at 9 to drive her to the law offices of Morrison & Associates, a prestigious firm in downtown Chicago, housed in a glass tower that made Maya feel small and out of place. "Ready?" Jennifer asked gently. "No, but let's go anyway." The law offices were all polished wood and expensive art. A receptionist directed them to a large conference room on the 20th floor. As they approached, Maya heard voices, Victoria's sharp tone, Richard's lazy drawl. Her steps faltered. "I can't do this," Maya whispered. "Yes, you can, and remember, they can't touch you here. This is neutral ground." They entered the conference room. Victoria and Richard sat on one side of a long mahogany table. Victoria wore black, still performing widow's grief, though James had been her brother-in-law, not her husband. Richard wore an expensive suit, looking bored and entitled. When Victoria saw Maya, her expression hardened. What is she doing here? A distinguished older attorney stood at the head of the table. Miss Chen is here at Mr. Hartwell's explicit request. Her presence is required for the will reading to proceed. That's absurd, Victoria snapped. She was just domestic help. Mrs. Hartwell, the attorney interrupted firmly, I am Robert Morrison, senior partner of this firm and executor of James Hartwell's estate. His will is very specific about who must be present. Miss Chen's attendance is non-negotiable. Maya noticed the attorney's last name, Morrison, like the doctor. Were they related? She filed that question away for later. Please sit, Robert Morrison gestured to chairs across from Victoria and Richard. Maya sat, keeping her eyes down, her hands folded over her stomach protectively. She could feel Victoria's glare burning into her. Now then, Robert Morrison began, opening a thick folder. We're here for the reading of James Michael Hartwell's last will and testament, dated January 15th of this year, just 2 weeks before his untimely death. 2 weeks before, Maya's breath caught. He'd updated his will recently? The attorney began reading. The opening was standard, legal language about sound mind and body, revoking all previous wills. Then came the asset distribution. To my sister-in-law, Victoria Hartwell, I leave the family home in Lake Forest and a trust fund of $2 million, with the stipulation that the property is maintained and allows certain historical society visits. Victoria's smile was tight. $2 million was a fortune to most people, but clearly less than she'd expected. To my cousin, Richard Hartwell, I leave my collection of vintage automobiles and a trust fund of $1 million, with the stipulation that the vehicles remain in the family and are not sold for profit. Richard's face darkened. $1 million? That's it? Mr. Hartwell, please, the attorney said calmly, let me finish. He continued reading through various charitable donations, hospitals, scholarships, community centers. James had given away tens of millions to causes he cared about. Then the attorney paused, took a breath, and continued.
The bulk of my estate, including Hartwell Industries, all real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and liquid assets, will be held in trust and distributed according to the following conditions. Victoria leaned forward sharply. Conditions? What conditions? Robert Morrison looked directly at her. James wrote, "I have spent the last year watching those closest to me. I have seen greed, manipulation, and betrayal. I have also seen loyalty, kindness, and character in unexpected places. Therefore, I am instituting a test." "A test?" Richard burst out. "How can he test anyone?" "By staging his death," came a voice in the doorway. Every head whipped around. James Hartwell stood in the entrance, alive, whole, his presence filling the room like a thunderclap. "No," Maya whispered, her hand flying to her chest. "No, you're dead. I was at your funeral. I knelt at your grave." James's eyes found hers, and the pain in them was unmistakable. "I know, Maya. I'm so sorry." But Maya wasn't listening anymore. The room spun. Her breathing came in short gasps. The shock, the pregnancy hormones, the sheer impossibility of what she was seeing, it all crashed over her at once. I can't, she...
The conference room felt like a tomb after Maya's departure. James stood frozen, her words echoing in his mind. "I will never forgive you for that." Victoria was the first to break the silence, her voice sharp and cutting. "Well, that was quite the dramatic performance from both of you." James turned slowly, his expression hardening. The vulnerability he'd shown Maya evaporated, replaced by cold fury. "Sit down, Victoria, both of you." His voice carried such authority that even Richard, who'd started to stand, immediately dropped back into his chair. James walked to the head of the conference table, where attorney Robert Morrison waited with careful neutrality. "Continue the reading," James ordered. "They need to hear the rest." Robert Morrison nodded, consulting his documents. "As I was saying before the interruption, James Hartwell instituted a test to determine the true character of those closest to him." "This is insane," Victoria hissed. "You faked your own death just to spy on your family?" "I staged my death," James coldly corrected, "to remove my influence and see who you really were, and you showed me." He nodded to the attorney, who pulled up a screen displaying security footage. "Over the past 3 weeks," Robert Morrison continued, "we've documented numerous instances of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to illegally obtain estate assets." The screen flickered to life, showing Victoria and Richard in James's study going through his private files. Victoria's face paled. "You had cameras?" "Everywhere," James finished. "I've had them for years. You just never noticed because you never thought I'd use them against family." The footage continued. Richard transferring funds from company accounts, Victoria meeting with lawyers to contest sections of the will before it was even read. Both of them laughing about James's death, actually laughing while discussing how to liquidate his assets. "You see," James said quietly, his anger barely contained, "I thought perhaps you'd grieve, that you'd honor my memory, that you'd protect the people who worked for this family." He leaned forward, hands flat on the table. "Instead, you threw Maya Chen out of the house while she was pregnant and vulnerable. You accused her of theft with zero evidence. You humiliated her, threatened her, and treated her like garbage." "She was just a maid," Richard started. "She was a person," James thundered. "A pregnant woman who'd done nothing but work hard and show loyalty, and you destroyed her life for sport." Victoria's expression twisted. "If you cared so much about the little maid, maybe you shouldn't have let her think you were dead. That was your cruelty, James, not ours." The words struck true. James's jaw clenched. "You're right. What I did to Maya was unforgivable, but what you did reveals who you've always been." He turned to the attorney. "Show them the financial audits." New documents appeared on screen. Spreadsheets, bank transfers, timestamps. For the past 5 years, Robert Morrison explained, Victoria Hartwell has embezzled approximately $3.2 million from Hartwell Industries through fake vendor accounts. Richard Hartwell has stolen another $1.8 million through fraudulent expense reports. Richard shot to his feet. "You can't prove that." "We can," the attorney replied calmly. "We have. It's all documented here. Bank records, email trails, witness testimonies from your co-conspirators who've already agreed to cooperate in exchange for reduced charges." Victoria's composed mask finally shattered. "James, please, we're family." "Family protects each other," James interrupted. "Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't prey on the vulnerable." He stood. "As executor of my own estate, because legally I was never actually dead, I'm exercising my rights under the will's fraud clause. All assets designated for Victoria Hartwell and Richard Hartwell are hereby revoked." "You can't do that," Victoria shrieked. "I can, and I have. The Lake Forest House goes to a historical preservation society. The trust funds will be donated to charities supporting domestic workers and pregnant women in crisis." James's smile was sharp and utterly without warmth. "You wanted my money so badly you couldn't wait until I was actually dead to start stealing it, so now you get nothing." Richard lunged across the table, but security, who'd been waiting outside, entered swiftly and restrained him. "I'll fight this," Victoria spat. "I'll sue. I'll drag your name through every court." "Try it," James said coldly, "and I'll file criminal charges. Fraud."
3 days passed in tense silence. Maya remained in the safe house, planning her departure to California, but struggling to find the energy to actually leave. The pregnancy exhaustion had intensified, or maybe it was emotional exhaustion. She couldn't tell anymore. James didn't try to contact her directly, but his presence was everywhere. In the groceries that appeared, in the medical appointments that were pre-scheduled, in the comfortable home that felt increasingly like a gilded cage. On the 4th day, attorney Robert Morrison requested a meeting. Maya almost refused, but Jennifer convinced her to listen. "There's something in the will you didn't hear," Jennifer explained. "Something James wanted you to know privately." They met at a small cafe, far from the Hartwell empire. Robert Morrison sat across from Maya, a manila folder between them. "Miss Chen," he began formally, then softened. "Maya, what I'm about to show you is confidential. James wanted you to see this without pressure, without anyone else present." Maya's stomach churned with anxiety. "What is it?" He slid the folder across. "This is an addendum to James' will, written 6 months ago and updated 2 weeks before his staged death." Maya opened it with trembling hands. The legal language was dense, but certain phrases jumped out. "To Maya Chen for her extraordinary character and loyalty. To a trust fund in the amount of $5 million to be distributed with no conditions or obligations. An educational fund for any children she may have, ensuring opportunities regardless of circumstances. Full scholarship to any university or vocational program she chooses." Maya's vision blurred. "This can't be real." "It's real," Robert Morrison confirmed gently. "James set this up months before he staged his death, before you were even pregnant." "But why? I was just his maid." The attorney smiled slightly. "James wrote a letter to accompany this. Would you like me to read it?" Maya could only nod, her throat too tight to speak. Robert Morrison pulled out a handwritten letter, James's precise, elegant script covering 2 pages. He began to read. "Maya, if you're hearing this, I'm either dead or I've been exposed as the complicated mess I truly am. Either way, I owe you an explanation. When I first noticed you in my house, it wasn't because you were exceptional at cleaning or remarkably invisible as the job required. It was because you were kind when you didn't need to be. You thanked security guards who ignored you. You helped other staff without seeking credit. You existed with grace in a household designed to crush dignity. The day with the broken vase, when I defended you, wasn't remarkable to me. It was simply telling the truth. But your reaction taught me something profound. You weren't used to being defended. You'd learned to expect injustice as normal. That broke my heart. Over the months that followed, I watched you more carefully, not as an employee watches an employee, but as one human watches another extraordinary person go unnoticed by everyone else. I saw your strength, your quiet resilience, your absolute refusal to let cruelty make you cruel. I developed feelings I had no right to develop. You were in my employ. There was a power imbalance I couldn't ethically cross. So I did what I could. I treated you with respect. I defended you when needed, and I made arrangements to ensure your future would be more than survival. This trust fund isn't payment. It's not compensation for my feelings or a transaction of any kind. It's an acknowledgement that you deserve opportunities you've been systematically denied, that your worth isn't determined by your employment status or your circumstances. Use this money however you choose. No one will judge you. No one will place conditions on it. It's yours, freely given, no strings attached. If I'm alive when you read this, I hope you understand that my feelings for you are real, even if I expressed them badly. If I'm dead, please know that watching you exist in the world made me believe in goodness again. You are not invisible, Maya Chen. You never were, at least not to me. With respect and gratitude, James Hartwell. The cafe seemed to hold its breath. Maya sat frozen, tears streaming silently down her face. "This was written 6 months ago?" she whispered. "Yes, long before the pregnancy, the fake death, everything." "He had feelings for me even then?" Robert Morrison nodded, and he tried to do the right thing by not acting on them, by simply setting up your future instead. Maya pressed her hands to her face. "This makes it worse. This makes everything so much worse." "How so?" "Because it means his feelings were real," she burst out. "It means when he watched me cry at his grave, it hurt him too. It means he wasn't just some cold manipulator. He was a man who cared about me watching me suffer and choosing his plan over protecting me from that pain." She stood abruptly, the chair scraping loudly. "I don't want the money. I can't accept this." "Maya, please think about the baby. The baby deserves a mother with integrity, and accepting $5 million from a man who broke my heart feels like selling my pain." Robert Morrison stood as well. "The money is yours legally, regardless of what you decide. But Maya, there's one more thing."
"What?" "James included a medical directive. If you ever need anything, prenatal care, delivery costs, emergency situations, everything is covered. That part isn't optional. It's set up through a blind trust. You can't refuse it even if you want to." Maya laughed bitterly. "So he's still controlling things from a distance." "He's trying to keep you and your baby safe," the attorney corrected gently. "Without asking if that's what I want," Maya shot back. She grabbed her purse, suddenly desperate to leave. "Thank you for telling me, but I need time to process this." As she walked out of the cafe, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I know you're angry. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please don't refuse the trust fund out of pride. Your baby deserves security, even if you hate me. James." Maya stared at the message, fury and heartbreak warring inside her. How dare he text her? How dare he presume to know what her baby deserved? But underneath the anger, a traitorous voice whispered, "He's right." Her baby did deserve security, and her own pride, her own hurt feelings, shouldn't deprive her child of opportunities. She typed back with shaking hands. "Don't contact me again. I'll think about the trust fund for my baby's sake. But whatever you think you felt for me, it's over. You killed it when you chose revenge over honesty." She hit send before she could reconsider. Across the city, in his downtown office, James read the message and felt something crack inside his chest. He'd expected this, prepared for it, but reading her words, seeing the finality in them, made it devastatingly real. Dr. Samuel Morrison, the medical doctor, Robert's brother, entered the office. "How did she take the news about the trust fund?" "About as well as I expected," James said quietly. "She thinks I'm trying to buy her forgiveness." "Aren't you?" "No," James replied firmly. "I'm trying to give her what she deserves, what she should have had all along." "And what about what you deserve?" James looked up sharply. "I deserve her anger. I deserve her hatred. I deserve to lose her completely." "That's not what I meant, and you know it." James stood, walking to the window overlooking Chicago. "I'm in love with her, Samuel. Completely, painfully in love with a woman who can barely stand to hear my name, and it's entirely my own fault." "So what now?" "Now? Now I give her space. I make sure she's safe from a distance, and I accept that some mistakes can't be undone." He pressed his hand against the glass, as if he could reach through it to where Maya was, somewhere in the city below. "I had her trust once. I had her grief, her tears, her confession of love at my grave, and I threw it all away for a plan that didn't matter nearly as much as she did." That night, Maya lay in bed at the safe house, her hand on her 12-week pregnant belly, the ultrasound picture from that afternoon's appointment clutched in her other hand. Her baby, a tiny, perfect profile, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a strong heartbeat. "What do I do?" she whispered. "Your father is gone, never really existed the way I thought he did, but there's this man, this complicated, infuriating man who broke my heart, and he's offering us security, offering you a future." The baby couldn't answer, of course, but Maya felt a small flutter, probably too early to be movement, just gas or her imagination, and she took that as a sign. "Okay," she said softly, "I'll accept the trust fund, not for him, for you, because you deserve every opportunity this cruel world denied me." She picked up her phone and typed a message to Robert Morrison. "I'll accept the trust fund for my baby, but I want it made clear legally that this isn't compensation, payment, or acknowledgement of any relationship between James Hartwell and myself. It's simply what it is, a gift with no strings." After hitting send, she made one more decision. Tomorrow, she would start looking for her own apartment. James had given her financial security, but she would build her own life, her own identity. She wouldn't be Maya Chen, the maid James Hartwell fell for. She would be Maya Chen, the woman who survived, who raised her child with dignity, who proved that kindness doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong. But in a city as connected as Chicago, staying away from James Hartwell would prove harder than Maya imagined. Because in 3 weeks, Victoria would make one final desperate play for revenge. A play that would put Maya and her unborn baby directly in danger. And when crisis struck, Maya would be forced to confront a painful truth that the man who broke her heart might also be the only one who could save her life.
2 weeks passed. Maya found a small apartment in a different neighborhood. Modest, but comfortable, with good light and reasonable rent she could afford with her trust fund earnings. She enrolled in online classes for business administration, something she'd always wanted to study but never had the chance. Slowly, carefully, she began building a life that was hers alone. The pregnancy progressed normally. At her 14-week appointment, the doctor confirmed everything was healthy.
Maya was entering her second trimester, and the morning sickness was finally easing. She started showing more noticeably now, a small but definite bump that she could no longer hide under loose clothes. At the grocery store, at the clinic, people began offering her seats, asking when she was due, making small talk about pregnancy. For the first time in her life, Maya felt visible, not as a maid, not as someone's project, but as herself, a woman building a future for her child. She hadn't heard from James directly since that one text message, but she felt his presence in subtle ways. The trust fund that handled every bill seamlessly, the medical bills that were always mysteriously prepaid, the scholarship office that contacted her about educational programs. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt oddly protective, like having a guardian angel she couldn't see but knew was watching. She hated that she didn't hate it entirely. One afternoon, while studying at a cafe near her new apartment, Maya looked up to find Jennifer Washington standing there. "May I sit?" Jennifer asked. Maya hesitated, then nodded. "I'm not here on behalf of James. I'm here as someone who cares about you. As a friend, if you'll allow that." "Are you still his attorney?" "I'm an attorney who helped facilitate your trust fund, yes, but that work is done. This visit is personal." Maya relaxed slightly. "Okay." Jennifer ordered coffee, and they sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Jennifer spoke carefully. "You're doing well. The apartment, the classes, you're building something real." "I'm trying. James asks about you. Not constantly, not invasively, but he asks." Maya's chest tightened. "I don't want to talk about him." "I understand, but Maya, there's something you should know. Victoria Hartwell has been making threats." Maya's blood ran cold. "What kind of threats?" "Nothing specific, just vague insinuations about exposing you somehow, claiming you manipulated James, that you're carrying his child and hiding it for some scheme." "The paternity test proved—" "Facts don't matter to someone desperate for revenge," Jennifer interrupted. "Victoria lost everything, her reputation, her money, her place in society. People like that become dangerous." Maya felt a fear creep up her spine. "Should I be worried?" "James doesn't think she'll actually do anything, but he's hired private security to watch your building discreetly, just in case." "What?" Maya's voice rose. "I didn't ask for that." "I know, but he did it anyway, because the thought of something happening to you or the baby keeps him up at night." Maya pressed her hands to her face. "Why can't he just let me go? Why can't he accept that we're over before we even began?" Jennifer's expression softened. "Because he loves you, Maya, and love doesn't switch off just because you want it to." "I don't want his love," Maya said, but even she could hear how hollow it sounded. "I want to feel safe building my own life without some billionaire pulling strings in the background." "Then tell him that. Have an actual conversation instead of avoiding him." "I can't face him," Maya admitted quietly. "Every time I think about seeing him, I remember kneeling at his grave, confessing things I would never have said if I'd known he could hear me. The humiliation is too much." "Humiliation?" Jennifer repeated. "Maya, you told a dead man you loved him. That's not humiliating. That's brave. It's honest. It's the most human thing anyone did during James's entire twisted plan." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "It feels like he stole something from me. My privacy, my grief, the right to mourn without being watched." "I know," Jennifer said gently, "and you have every right to be angry about that. But at some point, you need to decide, are you going to let this define the rest of your life, or are you going to confront it, process it, and move forward?" "I don't know how to move forward when he's still hovering in the background of everything I do." Jennifer reached across the table and squeezed Maya's hand. "Then maybe that's what you tell him. Set boundaries, demand distance, but do it directly, not through avoidance. After Jennifer left, Maya sat alone with her cooling tea, thinking about those words. Maybe it was time to face James Hartwell, not because she forgave him, but because she needed closure. She needed to look him in the eye and tell him exactly what his actions had cost her. That evening, Maya sent a text to the number James had used before. "We need to talk, face to face. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Lincoln Park Zoo. Public place, no lawyers, no security hovering nearby. Just you and me. If you actually care about me like you claim, you'll come alone and listen to what I have to say." The response came within minutes. "I'll be there. Thank you for this chance. Jay." Maya stared at the message, her heart racing. What was she doing? Was this smart? Was she ready for this? Her hand moved unconsciously to her belly. 14 weeks pregnant now. In 6 months, she'd be a mother. Her baby deserved a mother who didn't carry unresolved trauma, who didn't run from difficult conversations. "Tomorrow," she whispered to the baby, "tomorrow, Mama is going to be brave." But bravery, she would learn, was only half of what she'd need, because across the city, Victoria Hartwell was making plans of her own, plans that involved exposing Maya Chen as the opportunist Victoria believed her to be, plans that would put Maya directly in harm's way. And when those plans came to fruition, the conversation Maya planned to have with James would become the least of her worries.
The next day dawned gray and cold, typical Chicago autumn weather. Maya dressed carefully, jeans that accommodated her growing belly, a warm sweater, comfortable shoes. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Pregnant, independent, about to confront a billionaire who'd broken her heart. "You've got this," she told her reflection, but her hands shook as she grabbed her coat. Lincoln Park Zoo at 3 p.m. was moderately crowded. Families with children, couples walking hand in hand, tourists taking photos. Maya arrived 10 minutes early, positioning herself near the lion exhibit, where she could see people approaching. At exactly 3 p.m., James Hartwell walked up the path. He wore civilian clothes, jeans, a jacket, no expensive suit. He looked tired, thinner than she remembered, shadows under his eyes suggesting sleep had become a stranger. He stopped a few feet away, as if afraid to come closer. "Maya," he said softly. Just her name, but the way he said it with such careful reverence made her throat tight. "Thank you for coming," she managed. "I would have come anywhere, anytime." They stood in awkward silence for a moment, watching a lion pace in its enclosure, both of them probably identifying with the trapped feeling. "I've been thinking about what to say. I've rehearsed speeches in my head for days, that now that you're here, all I can think is, why? Why did I fake my death? Why did you let me grieve you? Why didn't you tell me the truth before everything spiraled?" James closed his eyes briefly. "Because I'm a coward. Because I convinced myself the ends justified the means. Because I prioritized catching criminals over protecting someone I—" He stopped. "Someone you what?" Maya pressed. "Someone I loved," James finished quietly. "Someone I still love." The words hung between them. Maya felt them land in her chest, heavy and complicated. "You don't get to say that," Maya said, her voice shaking. "You don't get to claim you love me after what you put me through." "I know, but it's true whether I have the right to say it or not." "Love is supposed to protect people." Maya's voice rose, causing nearby visitors to glance over. She lowered it to an angry whisper. "Love is supposed to mean you'd rather hurt yourself than hurt them. You watched me cry at your grave, James. You watched me confess my feelings to dirt and stone, and you stayed hidden." "I know. You watched Victoria humiliate me,
Watch them accuse me of being pregnant with your child. Watch them throw me out of the house like garbage, and you just observed, like I was some experiment." "That's not fair," James said, his own voice rising slightly. "The moment I saw what Victoria was doing, I intervened. I stopped the police questioning. I provided you with housing, medical care, everything you needed." "After letting it happen in the first place," Maya interrupted. "You could have prevented all of it. You could have told me the truth from the beginning, made me part of your plan, protected me. But instead, you treated me like everyone else in your life, like a variable to be managed instead of a person to be trusted." The accusation hit home. James flinched visibly. "You're right," he said quietly. "I did, and I can't take that back." "No, you can't." They stood in silence again, watching the lion continue its endless pacing. Finally, Maya spoke. "I hope you find peace, James. I really do. But you won't find it with me." She turned and walked away, her hand protectively over her belly, her shoulders straight, despite the tears she finally let fall when she was out of sight. James watched her go, standing motionless until she disappeared completely. Then he sank onto a nearby bench, his head in his hands, and allowed himself to feel the full weight of what he'd lost. What neither of them knew was that Victoria Hartwell had hired a private investigator who'd been following Maya for days, and the photos he'd taken of Maya at the clinic, at her apartment, at this very meeting with James were about to be weaponized in a way that would put Maya and her unborn baby in immediate danger. The conversation they just had would soon seem trivial compared to the crisis heading their way, because Victoria's revenge was coming, and it would strike at Maya's most vulnerable moment.
The press conference made headlines immediately, but the response was mixed. Some outlets praised Maya's bravery and condemned Victoria's harassment. Others questioned the relationship, speculated about hidden affairs, or suggested the paternity test could be faked. The internet, as always, was cruel. Maya made the mistake of checking social media that evening. The comments on news articles ranged from supportive to viciously hateful. "She's brave for speaking out. Obviously lying. No billionaire just gives money away. That baby is definitely his. Look at the timeline. Gold digger, playing the victim card. Why would she fall for her boss unless she wanted his money?" Each comment felt like a small cut. Together, they felt like bleeding out. Maya closed her laptop and tried to breathe through the anxiety. Her baby, safe inside her, seemed to sense her distress. The movements that had been gentle flutters became more agitated. "I'm sorry," Maya whispered, rubbing her belly. "I'm so sorry you're coming into this mess." Jennifer insisted Maya stay at the safe house for a few more days, just until things calmed down. James was staying elsewhere, respecting Maya's need for space, but his security team remained outside, watching. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. Every sound made her jump. Every car that passed seemed suspicious. She kept thinking about Victoria's face in old photos, cold, calculating, someone who'd already proven she'd stop at nothing for revenge. At 2:27 a.m., Maya's phone buzzed with an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Maya Chen?" A woman's voice, unfamiliar. "Who is this?" "Someone who wants to help you. Victoria Hartwell is planning something. Tomorrow. You need to be careful." "What? Who are you?" The line went dead. Maya's heart raced. She immediately called Jennifer, who answered on the second ring despite the hour. "Someone just called warning me about Victoria," Maya said, her voice shaking. "They said she's planning something tomorrow." "I'll increase security immediately," Jennifer replied, suddenly alert. "Don't leave the house. Don't open the door for anyone except me or James. I'll be there in 20 minutes. "Jennifer, I'm scared." "I know, honey,
But you're not alone. We're going to keep you safe." After hanging up, Maya sat in the darkness, one hand on her belly, trying to calm herself. But fear had settled into her bones, making sleep impossible. The next morning dawned gray and cold. By 9 a.m., Jennifer had arrived with additional security, 4 professionals who swept the house and set up monitoring equipment. "This seems excessive," Joanna said, though she was secretly grateful. "After that phone call, we can't be too careful," Jennifer replied. "James wanted to come himself, but I told him you needed space." "Thank you." At 11:30 a.m., a delivery van pulled up. One of the security guards intercepted the driver at the gate. "Package for Maya Chen," the driver said, holding a large box. "We'll take it from here," the guard replied, accepting the package and scanning it with detection equipment. The guard's expression changed. "Everyone back, now." Within seconds, the house was in controlled chaos. The bomb squad was called. The safe house was evacuated. Maya found herself rushed into an armored SUV with Jennifer, her heart hammering with terror. "Was it really a bomb?" Maya asked, her hands protectively covering her belly. "We don't know yet," Jennifer replied, her face pale. "She tried to kill me. She tried to kill my baby." "We don't know for certain it was her. Who else would it be?" Maya's voice rose, hysteria creeping in. "She's destroyed everything, my reputation, my peace, my safety, and now she's trying to murder me because I had the audacity to survive her first attacks." Jennifer pulled Maya into a hug as she broke down sobbing. An hour later, the bomb squad confirmed the package contained a sophisticated incendiary device designed to ignite upon opening. If Maya had opened it herself, the house would have caught fire with her inside. James arrived at the secure location where they'd taken Maya, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. He found her in a back room, wrapped in a blanket, still shaking. "Maya," he said softly, kneeling beside her chair. She looked up at him with red, swollen eyes. "She tried to kill us, me and my baby." "I know." "Why? What did I ever do to her except exist?" James took her hand gently. "Because you represent everything she's not. Kindness, integrity, genuine character. She can't stand that I chose to protect you over her." "I'm so tired," Maya whispered. "I'm so tired of fighting, of being scared, of wondering if someone will try to hurt me again." "Then stop fighting. Let me." Maya looked at him, confused. "Come with me," James continued. "Not to another safe house, to my private estate upstate. It's secure, isolated, completely off-grid. Victoria can't touch you there. No one can." "I can't hide forever." "Not forever, just until the baby comes, until Victoria is arrested and charged, until you're safe." Maya wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain her independence, her boundaries, but she was 16 weeks pregnant, exhausted, and someone had just tried to set her on fire. "Okay," Maya whispered. "Okay." By that evening, Maya was being transported to James's upstate property, a sprawling estate surrounded by forest with state-of-the-art security and complete privacy. The house itself was beautiful but understated, log cabin architecture with modern amenities, huge windows overlooking pristine woods, a warmth that the Hartwell mansion had never possessed. "It was my refuge," James explained as he showed her around. "When the business world became too much, I'd come here. No one knows about this place except my most trusted people." He showed her to a suite on the second floor, bedroom, bathroom, small sitting area, everything she might need. "I'll be in the West Wing," James added, "far enough to give you privacy, but close enough if you need anything." Maya stood at the window, looking out at the forest. "How long will I be here?" "As long as it takes. The police are building a case against Victoria for the bomb, the break-in, the harassment. It shouldn't be long before they arrest her. And then you decide what you want to do, where you want to go, how much or little you want me in your life." Maya turned to him, this complicated man who'd broken her heart and now saving her life. "I don't know how to navigate this, how to separate the anger from the gratitude, how to hate you and need you at the same time." "You don't have to figure it out right now. Right now, you just need to rest, be safe, take care of that baby." After he left, Maya lay on the bed, the most comfortable bed she'd ever felt, and finally, for the first time in days, felt safe enough to sleep. But as she drifted off, one hand on her belly, a truth was crystallizing that she wasn't quite ready to face. That despite everything, despite the betrayal and the lies and the pain, something fundamental had shifted. She didn't just need James Hartwell. Some part of her, the part that she'd tried to bury at his grave, was still in love with him. Victoria Hartwell was arrested at 6 a.m. the next morning, charged with attempted murder, terroristic threats, and conspiracy. The evidence was overwhelming. Communications with the bomb maker, payment records, the private investigator's testimony. But even from jail, Victoria had one final card to play. A revelation about Maya's baby's father that would shake everything Maya thought she knew about her pregnancy. And that revelation would force Maya to confront the most difficult truth of all, that sometimes love isn't about deserving it, it's about choosing it, even when it's terrifying.
2 weeks passed at the upstate estate. Maya settled into a routine, mornings spent on the sun-drenched porch with her online classes, afternoons walking the forest trails with security discreetly following, evenings reading or preparing for the baby. At 18 weeks pregnant, her belly had become unmistakably round. She'd started buying maternity clothes, real ones, not just stretchy versions of regular clothes. The baby moved frequently now, especially at night, tiny kicks and rolls that filled Maya with wonder. James kept his distance, true to his word. They saw each other at meals, breakfast and dinner in the main dining room, prepared by a chef who seemed to intuitively know what Maya's pregnancy was craving. The conversations were polite, carefully neutral, dancing around everything important. But Maya felt his presence everywhere. In the books about pregnancy that appeared on her nightstand, in the prenatal yoga videos queued up on her TV, in the rocking chair that materialized in her room one day, perfect for nursing a baby. He was caring for her without demanding anything in return, and it was breaking down her walls faster than any grand gesture could have. One evening, 3 weeks into her stay, Maya found James in his study, working late. She knocked softly. "Come in," he called. Maya entered, wearing comfortable pajamas, her hand resting on her belly in the unconscious gesture that had become habit. "Do you have a minute?" James immediately closed his laptop, giving her full attention. "Of course. Is everything okay? Is the baby?" "The baby's fine," Maya assured him. She sat in the chair across from his desk. "I wanted to talk to you. Really talk. Not just polite dinner conversation." James nodded, waiting. "Victoria was arraigned yesterday, Jennifer told me. She's pleading not guilty, claiming she was framed. She'll lose. The evidence is overwhelming." "I know." Maya paused, gathering courage, but something she said in her statement bothered me. She claimed she was protecting James from a manipulative woman who deliberately got pregnant to trap him. James's expression darkened. "That's ridiculous." "Let me finish," Maya interrupted gently. "It made me think about my baby's father, about David." She hadn't spoken that name aloud in months. James leaned forward, listening intently. "I told you he disappeared when I told him I might be pregnant, but I never told you the whole story. You don't have to." "I want to. I need to. because I think I've been carrying shame about this pregnancy that I don't deserve." She took a breath. "David worked at the estate briefly, landscaping crew. He was kind to me, or so I thought. Made me feel special. One night, he invited me out for coffee after my shift. It was the first time anyone had asked me on a date in years." Maya's voice grew quieter. "It happened once. I slept with him once, and I immediately regretted it because I realized he'd been telling me what I wanted to hear. He wanted a conquest, not a connection. When I tried to end it, when I said I didn't want to see him again, he got angry, called me names, said I'd been leading him on." James's hands clenched into fists, but he remained silent. "3 weeks later, I realized my period was late. I called him to tell him I might be pregnant. He laughed and said it wasn't his problem. Changed his number the same day." Maya's eyes glistened with tears she'd been holding back for months. "So when Victoria says I deliberately got pregnant to trap someone, it's like being violated all over again. Because I didn't trap anyone. I was used and abandoned." "Maya," James started, his voice rough with emotion. "And here's what I realized," Maya continued, wiping her eyes. "I've been so focused on not being a gold digger, on not being manipulative, on proving I'm not what Victoria accused me of being, that I forgot something important." "What's that?" "That I'm a victim too," Maya said, her voice cracking. "That I was hurt by someone who pretended to care about me. That my baby was created from a moment I regret with someone who treated me like garbage. And that's not my fault." James stood and moved around the desk, kneeling beside her chair. "It's not your fault," he said firmly. "None of it was your fault." "But I feel so stupid." "No," James interrupted. "You feel human. You wanted connection. You wanted to be seen. There's nothing stupid about that." Maya looked at him, this man who'd hurt her and helped her, who'd broken her trust and earned it back through actions, not words. "Can I tell you something else? Anything?" "I'm terrified I won't be a good mother," Maya whispered. "That I'll look at my baby and see David. That I'll resent this child for how they were conceived." The walls Maya had carefully constructed began to crumble. "I don't deserve this." "Yes, you do. You deserve everything good this world has to offer." Maya looked at the nursery James had created, at the man standing before her, offering unconditional support, and felt something unlock in her chest. "I can't promise I'll stay," she said carefully. "I can't promise I'll forgive everything or that we'll end up together. I know. But I can promise I'll try to trust again, to let you in, little by little, to see if we can build something real from all this brokenness." James's face transformed with hope. "That's all I ask. And James," Maya stepped closer, "for what it's worth, I think maybe I'm falling in love with the person you've become. Not the man who broke my heart, but the man who spent months trying to heal it." "Maya!" "Don't," she said softly, placing a finger over his lips. "Don't say anything. Just be patient with me. Can you do that?" "I can do that," James promised. They stood together in the nursery James had built, two broken people choosing to try, choosing hope over hurt, choosing the possibility of love over the safety of walls. Outside, autumn was giving way to winter, and inside Maya Chen, a baby continued to grow. A baby who would be born into a story of survival, second chances, and the revolutionary idea that family isn't always biology. It's sometimes choice. It's sometimes love that shows up day after day, earning trust one small action at a time. But their story wasn't over yet, because in 3 months, when Maya went into labor early and complications arose, James would face his greatest test, proving that his love wasn't just words or gestures, but the kind of commitment that shows up in the hardest moments, no matter the cost. 21 weeks became 25. 25 became 30. Winter settled over the upstate estate, transforming it into a snow-covered sanctuary where Maya's pregnancy progressed peacefully. She and James found a rhythm, careful, tentative, but growing stronger. They took walks together through snowy trails. They cooked dinner together, side by side. They sat by the fireplace in the evenings, Maya reading pregnancy books while James worked on his laptop, comfortable in shared silence. At her 30-week appointment, the doctor confirmed everything looked healthy. "Though you're measuring slightly small," the doctor noted, "we'll keep an eye on it." Maya wasn't worried. She felt good. The baby moved constantly, especially when she ate chocolate or listened to music. She had started calling the baby Little Bean because the nickname felt easier than constantly saying the baby. James had asked hesitantly if he could come to one of her appointments. Maya had agreed, and seeing his face when he heard the heartbeat, the wonder, the tears he tried to hide, had shifted something fundamental in her heart. At 32 weeks, they were preparing dinner together when Maya felt an odd tightening across her belly. She paused, hands on the counter, breathing through it. "You okay?" James asked immediately. "Yeah, just Braxton Hicks, probably. The doctor said they're normal." But over the next hour, the tightening came again and again, more frequent, more intense. "Maya," James said, his voice tight with concern, "how far apart are these contractions?" "They're not contractions. It's too early." Another wave hit, stronger this time. Maya gasped, gripping the counter. James was already on his phone. "Dr. Morrison, we need you here now. Maya's having contractions at 32 weeks. Yes, I'll time them. Please hurry." The next 2 hours were a blur. Dr. Morrison arrived and confirmed Maya was in preterm labor. An ambulance was called. Maya was transported to the nearest hospital, a top-rated facility James had researched months ago just in case. In the hospital room, hooked up to monitors, Maya was terrified. "It's too early," she kept saying. "The baby's not ready. It's only 32 weeks." "Babies born at 32 weeks have excellent survival rates," the obstetrician assured her. "But we're going to try to stop the labor first, give the baby more time if we can." They administered medications. Hours passed. The contractions slowed but didn't stop entirely. James never left her side. He held her hand through each contraction, wiped her forehead with cool cloths, murmured encouragement when Maya's strength faltered. "I'm scared," Maya whispered at 2 a.m. after another failed attempt to stop the labor. "I know," James said softly, "but you're the strongest person I know. You and Little Bean are both fighters." At 4:17 a.m., the decision was made. The labor couldn't be stopped safely. The baby was coming, ready or not. "I can't do this," Maya said as they prepped her for delivery. "I'm not ready. I don't know how to be a mother." "You've been a mother since the moment you decided to protect this baby. You've been a mother through every difficulty, every fear, every moment you could have given up but didn't. You're ready, Maya. You've always been ready." The delivery was intense but mercifully quick. At 6:43 a.m., Maya gave birth to a daughter, 4 pounds, 6 ounces, screaming with surprising strength for such a tiny human. "She's perfect," the doctor said, placing the baby briefly on Maya's chest before the NICU team took over. "Small but strong, good color, good tone. She's a fighter." Maya had only seconds to see her daughter, wrinkled and red and absolutely beautiful, before she was whisked away to the neonatal intensive care unit. "Go with her," Maya told James through tears. "Don't let her be alone." James looked torn between staying with Maya and following the baby. "Go," Maya insisted. "I'll be fine. She needs someone." James kissed Maya's forehead quickly. "I'll come right back." He followed the NICU team, and Maya was left in the delivery room, exhausted and empty and more terrified than she'd ever been.
The next hours passed in a fog. Maya was moved to a recovery room. Nurses checked on her constantly, but all she wanted was her baby. James returned after an hour. "She's okay," he said immediately. "She's on oxygen support, but the doctor says she's doing well for 32 weeks. They're monitoring her closely." "Can I see her?" "Soon. They want you to rest a bit more first." Maya started crying, exhausted, hormonal, overwhelmed tears.
Serving a 15-year sentence for attempted murder. She'd wanted to destroy Maya Chin. Instead, she'd inadvertently given her everything. A family, a home, and the kind of love that's earned through darkness and chosen in light. And somewhere in Chicago, the Hartwell estate still stood, but it was empty now, transformed into a shelter for women escaping domestic violence and pregnant women in crisis. Maya's idea, James' funding, a legacy of turning past pain into future hope. Maya Chen had started invisible, but she'd become unforgettable, not because a billionaire noticed her, but because she'd never stopped being herself, even when the world tried to break her. And that, in the end, was the real story worth telling.